Hola, chicos. We are getting awfully close to the end of the school year. The class that I'm teaching you today is how I am correcting your written work. Instead of just making the corrections for you and have it being a passive learning experience, I am using what is called a clave de corrección, or a correction key, to use symbols to indicate what your mistakes are. That way you will look at the symbol, you will think about your mistake, and you will actually make the correction yourself instead of just passively looking at what I wrote. There's a lot more learning involved with this method of editing your own work. And I think it will work okay through the internet. It would have worked a little bit better in class because I would have had you sitting down next to me and we would have had an in-person conversation about it. And we can still do that if you would like. So remember that we can always have a Zoom meeting anytime that you guys want. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the simplified correction key that I've made. I'm going to show you a paragraph that is incorrect. I'm going to show you the way that I'm going to correct it using these suggestions. And then I'm going to show you what the final version needs to look like. Okay, so first let's go ahead and look at the correction key. An A simply means that you either have an accent in the wrong place, you are missing an accent, or you have an extra accent. GA is going to be your gender agreement. So if your subject is feminine, your articles and your adjectives need to be feminine. If your subject is plural, then your article and your adjectives need to be plural. So gender agreement is your gender, el libro, la chica. Number agreement is if it's singular or plural. Los chicos, las personas. P/I is going to be preterite versus the imperfect. So basically, if you put a verb in the preterite, it probably needs to be in the imperfect. If you put it in the imperfect, it probably needs to be in the preterite. As I've been grading some of your introductory paragraphs, I've also been giving you the reasons as to why you have the incorrect tense. Pluperfect, don't worry about too much. We didn't really have too much time to look at it together this year, so I'm just plugging it in for you guys. But remember that the pluperfect is any time that you're saying in English, I had walked, I had studied, I had eaten, and we use this tense to layer things in the past. So I had breakfast when I sat down to work today. RV is going to be a reflexive verb. So some verbs are just reflexive when you're doing the action to yourself. Yo me llamo Joyce. You need to remember to include that pronoun. Subjunctive. Because of our composition being written in the past tense, you're not going to have a whole lot of subjunctive that you need to put in here because you're not going to be using the subjunctive in the past. The only time I would expect that you would have the subjunctive in your composition is if somebody's speaking to somebody else and you're directly quoting them. So maybe your mother says something like, espero que vuelvas a casa temprano, as part of the dialogue in your story. But as far as part of the actual written narration, you're not going to have any subjunctive because we haven't spent a whole lot of time studying the subjunctive in the past. Ser, estar, and haber is basically that you're using ser when you need estar or when you need haber. So we've already reviewed ser and estar quite a bit. What you need to remember with haber is haber means there is, there are. So in the past, you can say había or you can say hubo. And you have to look at the rules of the preterite and the imperfect to see which one that you need. So I could say, en 2 horas hubo 2 accidentes. In 2 hours, there were 2 accidents. I have a specific time period. It's the rule of duration, number 4. So it needs to be in the preterite. But I could say, había muchas personas en la playa. There were a lot of people on the beach because I'm just describing. So you have to pay attention to when you use the preterite, when you use the imperfect, to know when you need to use hubo or when you need to use había. SP is spelling, and actually I've realized, and I'm just going to go ahead and change this right now, I had also actually been marking it with an O, which stands for orthography. So you might see an O, you might see an SP, but regardless, it's going to be, I've got this thing in correcting mode. I'll just have to go back and fix that later. No worries. If you see an O, just know that we're talking about spelling. VA is verb agreement. So that's going to be something like you have a singular subject but a plural verb. You have a nosotros subject but a yo verb. So just make sure that your subject always agrees with your verb the way it does over here. Okie dokie. All right, so now let's look at my little mini paragraph and see how I would actually go ahead and grade this for you guys. So I'm going to start by looking at María estaba una muchacha altas y guapas. Okay, there's a bunch of problems here. The first problem is with the verb estaba. It shouldn't be estaba, it should be era. So what I would do is I would come over here, I would click on the comment, and this is a ser, estar, and haber issue. And I would put ser, estar, and haber. I would click on comment, and you would now know that there's a problem there that's tied into ser, estar, and haber. If you look down here at my correction, you needed to have era instead of estaba because we are describing one human being and their own personal characteristics. Plus, we also have ser plus noun. You never have estar plus noun. All right. Maria era un muchacha. Okay, muchacha is feminine. Un is masculine. So I have an issue here. This un needs to be una. So I would click on that, and it's a gender agreement issue. So I would type GA. When you correct it, you would add una to it. Muchacha, not a problem. Maria era una muchacha. No problem there. But then I'm looking at my adjective altas. I'm talking about one person, not two. So I'm going to take altas. I'm going to highlight it. And here what we have is a number issue. It needs to be singular instead of plural. So I enter number agreement. And if you look down at my correction, we have alta. Finally, we have y guapa. Maria's feminine. She's singular. This sentence is now correct. Moving on. She lived in a house with her grandparents. This is part of our introduction paragraph. It's not a case of she lived there and then she moved somewhere else. It's not a series of actions. It's a description. It's part of our context. So here we have a preterite and imperfect issue. It should not be in the preterite. It should be in the imperfect, which I have fixed it to there. Ella vivía en su casa con sus abuelos. What in the world is abuelos? I think we have a spelling issue here. So I'm going to highlight that. And then over here, I'm going to put my comment, and I'm going to put either an SP or I'm going to put an O for orthography so that you know that that is spelled wrong and you need to fix it. I fixed the spelling right down here. Continuing. Su familia eran muy simpática. Oh, we have a subject-verb agreement here. Familia, even though it's a group of people, is a singular noun. Notice it starts with su. We say la familia. If we say las familias, we're saying the families. So even though it's a group of people, it's a singular noun. So I have a verb agreement issue here. So I am going to type my comment, VA, for verb agreement. And you would need to fix it to make it singular, era. Su familia eran muy simpática. Oh, simpática looks pretty good, but it's missing an accent. So again, I'm going to highlight the word. I'm going to click on my comment, and I'm going to type the letter A. Back here in my correction, I went ahead and added my accent. All right, su papá llamaba Juan. Uh-oh, llamaba is a reflexive verb. You guys are missing your pronoun. So I would highlight llamaba. I would come over here, and I would put RV for reflexive verb. Now, in this case, it's a reflexive verb that needs the pronoun. So you added the se, but it's also entirely possible that you would put a pronoun that you wouldn't need because it's not reflexive, in which case I would use the same code, and you would know that you would need to take away the pronoun instead of adding it. Okay, we've got the word él. Él here means he. Anytime that él means he, you have to put an accent on it. When él means the, you do not. So I would highlight this. I would hop on over here. I would remind you guys that you need an accent. And then to correct it, which I actually didn't do, we're going to go like that. Okay? And then él era en su trabajo. Okay? He's physically located at his job. So again, we have a ser and estar issue here. So I'm going to go SEH for ser, estar, and haber, and then you're going to fix it by putting estaba. And then finally, looking at trabajo, that is not spelled right. So I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to add a comment. I'm going to put SP or an O. I'm going to hit comment. And then down here, I fixed it. So basically, you guys will have written something like this, hopefully better than that. I will correct it using all of these symbols. You will then rewrite your final version of the entire composition. Those of you who have completed the imperfect introduction so far, I have gone back and I have edited a lot of those. It takes me a lot of time, so I'm a little bit slow with this, okay? I'm sorry about that. But I've edited probably about 70% of my introductions. Your rewrite for this story is due on Wednesday. It's not your rewrite, it's your original version of the entire story is due on Wednesday. So you've already written the introduction, you're going to write the body of the work, and you're going to write the conclusion, and you're going to turn that into me on Wednesday. I need you guys to stay on top of this work because it's going to take me a while to correct it. I will try to get it back to you guys over the weekend, and your final draft will be due the final day of class. Please let me know if you have any questions. Ciao.